Wolfram von Eschenbach and Gottfried von Strassburg are contemporary and highly esteemed writers within the Middle High German tradition and the High Middle Ages. In this presentation, I'll be providing a basic overview to the signature works of each, Wolfram's Parzival and Gottfried's Tristan. Obviously, because we're considering two signature authors and their works here, this presentation will run a bit longer than the others. Although both of these figures work within the body of stories we refer to as the Arthurian tradition, the Parzival fits more directly, given the main character's early association with Arthur's Round Table. Later medieval writers promoted Tristan to that same status, even though his roots sit more directly within separate British and/or Irish traditions. Overall, when considering the transcribed or composed, i.e. written, tales from the High Middle Ages ascribed to a single writer, it is often helpful to recognize their earlier existence in pre-literate forms, and that's certainly the case with both the Parzival and Tristan. Because of the unique way that each poet portrayed the combinations between knightly behaviors and chivalric codes of behavior, Wolfram and Gottfried are still seen as favorite sons of their respective cities, Eschenbach and Strasbourg obviously, and are both known for stories that conjoin the themes of the just use of violence with the refinements of aristocratic courtliness. Despite the differing characteristics of their works, concerns about class affiliation and knightly virtue pervade. Here's a first introduction to Parzival, which you should pause and review. As with the sagas and the Nibelungenlied, the poem is of epic proportions and is of an appropriate length to reflect those aspirations. The slide makes reference to the great French writer of courtly romances, Chrétien de Troyes, whose Comtesse de Graal also focuses on the story of a simpleton knight named Percival, who gradually realizes greater sophistication and sensitivity in his thinking and in his interaction with other troubled and sometimes wounded courtly characters, like the Fisher King. Both stories revolve around the main character's quest for the Holy Grail, and the term Bildungsroman, meaning a story of growth and education, is appropriately applied to these narratives. Here's another useful summary from a different online source, also worth pausing over and reviewing. Again, one of Parzival's central themes is the main character's gradual realization of humility, nobility, and maturity. Emerging from a place of immaturity and uncertainty over his place in the world, in his quest for the Grail, Parzival realizes a fuller version of himself. In this way, in his quest for the Grail, it becomes more than a sacred object and assumes symbolic value as a means towards a higher plane of existence, a greater closeness to God, and a representation of Parzival's hard-won devotion to his Christian faith. In contrast to Parzival's concerns with growth, maturity, and the embrace of faith of a higher order, Gottfried's Tristan is focused on the hard-won and ultimately tragic union of the Prince Tristan and his beloved Princess Isolde, whose union, curiously enough, begins with their mutual partaking of a mysterious love potion that prompts their fierce attraction to one another. As before, this story emerges from a separate body of folklore and gradually and only partially comes to be associated with the Arthurian tradition. It is also worth noting that Gottfried passed away before completing his masterwork, and the slide describes the work of two other authors who sought to bring closure to the account of the forbidden love of the story's main characters. A major focus of the poem is on the courtly associations and behaviors of the main characters, even as the story also reflects the values of an emerging humanism, a concept we'll revisit more fully in the next module. In this lengthy and detailed slide, you'll find plenty of additional observations about Gottfried's masterpiece, so please take time to pause and review. In this romance, we see a vivid illustration of the concept of courtly love, a commonly depicted theme in medieval romance that focuses on the rules, taboos, and conceits of a love that is forbidden within worldly contexts, but is given divine sanction for its sublime power, a love that assumes otherworldly dimensions and forms as a quasi-religious cause. To this end, and as the slide notes, Tristan and Isolde are sometimes identified as true saints of courtliness, enhancing both the power and the possibility of their union and the tragedy in their untimely demise in one another's arms. As you approach your reading of selected portions of these two works, here are some general ideas to keep in mind. We see the alignment of love and nobility, and the concern with chivalric virtues culminating in an idealized ethos of courtly behavior. We also see, particularly in the Tristan, the emerging concept of the courtly lover, a figure representing an ethos of service and suffering devoted to an idealized version of romantic love. We also see early illustrations of humanism, or a focus on self-cultivation and an aspiration to a higher level of existence in worldly realms that stands apart from, but also serves as preparation for, an ultimate embrace of the divine. That concludes this introduction to the signature works of Wolfram and Gottfried. I do hope you enjoy the selections of these works that I've made available to you, and for now I'll thank you for your attention.